You take an iconic film series, an iconic comic series, you ruin its main character by basically taking what is to be the most hopeful character in probably all of film. You turn that individual into a hermit who doesn't exactly believe in the ways of the Force, the ways of good anymore. You do all that, then you give us a hero that is quite frankly unstoppable, no character development, and you completely ruin an entire fan base in the process. But yeah, you're going to come out here and give us a Star Wars film that, quite frankly, nobody needs or even wants. Well, gang, we're back here talking about pop culture and how it is that this pop culture that we distribute all around the world kind of sort of affects everything. And once again, we have the people at Lucasfilm, who, by the way, are basically just subservient to Disney now, wanting to release a fourth Star Wars film, basically the return of Rey. We don't really have an actual title here, and of course, most Star Wars fans really and truly do not want this, nor do they need this at this moment in time, especially given the fact that the sequel trilogy completely destroyed the entire series. But we're here to talk about this because, well, it does in fact matter when you look at the long run. Guys, a while back, Razor Fist, he did a video on the last gasp of Red Hollywood and how it was that Hollywood with all the SJW stuff, and not to mention he also did another rant called Why Hollywood Was Always Red. We'll probably explore some of the things that have been found out in Hollywood since then, especially going all the way back to what Andrew Breitbart was saying about how Hollywood basically turned left in the late 60s because conservatives, for the most part, basically gave up. But those right there are projects that we'll be doing later on down the road. The thing is this right here. The Star Wars fan base, for the most part, is an extremely loyal, very fickle fan base. Like if you actually go against what's in the comics or go against what's in the original trilogy, they're probably going to get a little bit pissed off with you, especially given how The Last Jedi was such a disaster. Now, guys, I'll be explaining to you guys towards the end of the video my actual relationship with that particular film because there's actually a story behind that that does involve exactly how it was that I kind of evolved in a matter of about 2 hours on how bad that film was. But I'm going to digress for the moment now. So apparently this film has been getting worked on for a while. Apparently Kathleen Kennedy, don't even get me started on her, has been working on this project for a great while. I'm pretty sure that when this movie comes out, maybe 2, 3, 4 years from now, assuming it's not officially dead, I'm pretty sure that the critics are probably going to love it, and of course the moviegoers are probably going to hate it. Hence the fact that I talked about this earlier in my Mario Brothers, let's just say, I wouldn't call it a review, but definitely the reason. I basically explained in that video why it is that critics and fans are not exactly seeing eye to eye right now, not on the same page. Basically, the exact same thing happened here with the sequel trilogy. So let's just go ahead and go back in time really quick. Star Wars came out in the late 1970s, product of George Lucas. Okay, The Empire Strikes Back was directed by Irvin Kershner, but still though, it's a George Lucas product. The fact of the matter is this: where the original trilogy was iconic. As a matter of fact, I actually grew up on that trilogy. I even collected some action figures at one point in time. Well, then you had a bit of a resurgence in the late 90s. That right there being the prequel trilogy that George Lucas had been working on. Of course, you had The Phantom Menace, the Attack of the Clones, and of course you had Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith, I think, is an extremely underrated film. And then Lucas decides he wants to sell the rights to Star Wars to Disney. Well, then they come out there with The Force Awakens, which, in my personal opinion, was just basically like retconning the original A New Hope. It was practically the same film. And then we get the abhorrent Last Jedi. Now, guys, I originally, when I watched that film, actually was kind of like, meh, it wasn't bad, it wasn't great. But then again, though, when I went to go see that particular movie, I got lucky that the individual beside me's wife did not show up, and him and his son had an extra ticket, so they just gave it to me. So I watched it for free at right around noontime the day after it came out. I would later on go to the theater later on that night and watch it again because I'm that type of guy that I will watch something twice to see if it was, in fact, as good as it should have been. As a matter of fact, you need to watch something multiple times to give a proper review on it or a proper analysis. But the thing is this right here. The second time I watched it, I thought to myself, good God, this right here is absolutely horrible. All the crap they did, the way they basically killed Luke off. Don't get me started on the the other character that they used, Rose, don't even get me started on that. Basically, the film was a bunch of trash. Holdo, the constant demeaning of men in the film, almost like you were trying to prop women up, and in turn, you actually made the female characters look incompetent. Don't even get me started on that. You see, characters have got to be properly developed, and they never did this with Rey. Rey was basically invincible from the start. The minute that she was introduced, she was invincible. There was no actual honest-to-God true character development. Typically what you do with a protagonist is that you allow that protagonist to struggle a little bit, so that way they can kind of sort of gain a little bit of mettle. This way that the muscles, the sinew can kind of toughen up on its own, so that way it's much, much more believable when you get to the final climax, which of course would have been the third film, which I thought was a sad attempt at trying to save the franchise, and ended up doing just as much harm than it did good, maybe even more, by bringing back Palpatine, a character that had died in Return of the Jedi. These people obviously did not know what the hell they were doing, and I chalk it up mostly to lazy writing. And seeing how it's set like 15 years in the future, like 15 years after the Rise of Skywalker, I had to kind of catch myself for a second there, because in reality, it's really the rise of Palpatine. Once again, another one of these agendas where you can just kind of like take somebody's last name or whatnot. I'm pretty sure you guys get the point. I'm just curious, seeing how there are no more Jedi, no more Sith, I'm just curious, who is Rey going to fight? Who is she going to fight? Now, don't be surprised, however, if like all the students are like girls and they have the one trans character or whatnot. I mean, Disney has completely destroyed this franchise. But now you want to come back and you want to try to redo this. Okay, never mind the fact that the Star Wars series themselves on Disney Plus, never mind that they've actually gone downhill in quality. The Mandalorian had a good start, and then of course you have the whole Gina Carano mess. Of course, you don't cut a popular character due to politics. And of course, other projects that Star Wars has had since then kind of suffered as a result of all the wokeness and all the pandering, all the pestering they did, the whole forces female crap. Go back to what I said about The Last Jedi. Go back to what I said about that, how that film was at first to a lot of people just meh, especially me. And then we go back and watch it again. It was absolutely horrible. Maybe we should have listened to Mark Hamill when he gave us all the signs.
Us to know going into The Last Jedi, anything you want to tell the audience or the world about this one in comparison to the other ones?
It's the longest one. It doesn't matter.
Luke Skywalker is here, and Amy's here with me.
Yes,
miss you, stranger.
Thank you. Miss you too. What was your initial reaction when you found out you were returning just for one scene?
When I read 7, I said, I love everybody's part except mine. And on this one, it was similar in the sense that I said to Ryan, I'm so surprised how you see Luke.
These films now are being made by children.
But how is it for him, for your kids to grow up with their dad as Luke Skywalker?
But he's like, he likes David Cronenberg films better.
What's the biggest difference from when we last saw Luke in the end of Return of the Jedi to when we meet him now in The Last Jedi?
Who is this guy?
It's only a movie. And if you think you're going to go into the movie and recapture your childhood, you're setting yourself up for disappointment.
There's been a lot of stuff like the books, video games that have added to Luke's journey.
Yeah.
Because he's been looking for these Jedi artifacts
Yeah.
and things. How much does that play into your performance? How much are you paying attention to this new canon stuff?
Signed on, and like I say, I didn't know it was going to be bought by Disney because this was summer of 2012. Then they announced that Disney had bought Lucasfilm around Halloween, which would have been October 30th. We didn't know who the director was going to be, and then they announced J.J. Abrams, and it all came out. It was all very, very exciting, and I hope people are happy. It seems like because in Hollywood, remember, kids, it's not important if it's of high quality, only if it makes money. So
Now, gang, it's really easy to blame Rian Johnson for the job that he did on that film, but in reality, we probably should blame Jar Jar Abrams. That's who we should really blame. I think a lot of people looked at it and they thought to themselves, well, he can't mess it up any more than what they did with Star Trek, which I personally didn't think that Star Trek was messed up when he did it, it's only due to reappraisal that I think that Star Trek may have may could have improved in a few areas. But the fact of the matter is that the sequel trilogy of Star Wars just wasn't any good. I mean, dude, one of the first decisions you make is to kill off Han Solo in the first one. Now, I understand you might want to kill this character off, and no, I'm not just sitting here simping for my boy or for Daddy Han here. The thing is this right here. You can kill off characters, but you need to have a certain type of let's just say timing matters. Timing matters in a story. It's kind of like what happened with The Last of Us Part 2 when they chose to kill Big Papa Joel off at the very beginning of the game. You could have killed him off, but don't you think maybe you might should have waited a little bit later and maybe created a little bit more of a backstory on that, a little bit more lead up? It's stuff like that there. It just shows you that the writers themselves are completely lazy and they don't know how to write films, mainly due to the fact that a lot of these people who are writing these movies are in fact children and they hated the character to begin with, but I'll digress for the moment being. The fact of the matter is that these people completely destroyed a franchise that people loved. They felt that it was a beloved franchise with several beloved characters, and then they tried to do fan service in the final film. And let's not forget the whole gay controversy, how it was that a gay character was going to finally be introduced. Just more and more woke pandering from Disney. I mean, has anybody noticed by now that Disney at this point in time is really just a great big giant crock of crap? Has anybody thought about this? I mean, let's not forget how they handled Buzz Lightyear. Let's not forget how the actor Chris Evans handled that in an interview when he basically said that the people who didn't like Buzz Lightyear were a bunch of idiots. You see, you don't piss on the fans. The fans are fans for a reason. They're moviegoers for a reason. They buy the ticket. They are the ones that you probably, and I wouldn't say you should consult with them, but you might want to consult with the people that the fans choose as their voice, because obviously you people completely bungled this one. So don't be surprised that when this movie comes out, when you spend roughly $200 or $300 million to make this particular picture, don't be surprised if people don't show up and the box office returns are very low. Guys, John Claymore here. If you like the content, please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign up in the comment section. I would love to get you guys' thoughts on this, and I'll see you guys later.